Chapter 796, Heavenly Blade Inquiry, 2, They are real, and this is the last question. Old Man Corpse C looked at Jiang Hao and smiled. You must think carefully. Just 10 simple questions may not provide you with enough understanding of the corpse realm. Of course, asking questions I don't know is the same as asking in vain. Jiang Hao wasn't worried. Instead, he asked the questions raised by Shujin because the other party had helped warn him of the rain. The reminder was worth a question. What relationship does the corpse realm have with the outside world? That question is not easy to answer. Old Man Corpse C thought for a moment and said, according to my speculation, there should be some connection, but to date, no related information has been found. Even the language of the heavenly spirit tribe is somewhat different. Perhaps there's a relation, but it exists in different eras. It's hard to say which is more ancient. If you want an answer, you could try collecting ancient pages. Maybe you'll find some answers there. Jiang Hao felt that it was a pity. Can I ask one more question? I may not answer, Old Man Corpse C said. Who is the core of the end of all things? Jiang Hao asked. The person seemed to have entered a certain sea area and disappeared. The others were still waiting for his return. Old Man Corpse C shook his head and remained silent. The seawater dissipated. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye returned to the deck once again. He immediately informed Shujin of the answer. The latter was extremely grateful and even took out a jade pendant. He hoped that if Jiang Hao ever visited the western region, he could drop by the Astronomical Academy. Jiang Hao accepted it, but he probably wouldn't go. It was too far away. He simply couldn't reach there. When he went east before, it was because Xiao Li and the others had been there, and he had borrowed the golden rings. There was no one to help him make a trip this time. Actually, there was a way, but whether to use it needed some thought. He had asked all the questions, and it seemed there was no need to linger here. This was not a good place. Jiang Hao wanted to leave as soon as possible. The others also didn't want to stay here any longer. It seems like you want to leave. Indeed, the Corpse Sea is not a place where you can stay as you wish, said Old Man Corpse C and looked at everyone. Oh, one more piece of advice, don't enter the depths of the Corpse Sea. At that moment, the coastline gradually appeared in sight. The sky turned gloomy once again. In that case, I won't keep you, Old Man Corpse C said. Jiang Hao bowed and finally left on his sword. The Great Thousand God Sect and the end of all things were the ones he needed to be wary of. It was important to understand their motives. However, that didn't mean intercepting each one of them. Not everyone's interests conflicted with his. It was wise to avoid conflicts, especially in this dangerous place. Finally, they left. Before long, Jiang Hao arrived at the edge of a cliff and stepped inside. Everything went smoothly. However, when he left, he felt a strange sensation as if he had entered an isolated area. Jiang Hao stood in a cave and breathed a sigh of relief. However, the Corpse Sea still existed. It seemed he could enter any time. But Jiang Hao didn't plan to go in again. This place made him feel an inexplicable sense of danger. Is there still tea? Hong Yuye asked. I'll go and buy it for you immediately, Jiang Hao said promptly. Even ordinary tea was finished, so he had to look around. After leaving the mine, Jiang Hao looked for people in 1,000 Feet Mountain. There were many powerful individuals here, so he might find some tea. After a while, he found a woman in blue robes. She frowned at him slightly. The middle stage of the Golden Core realm and late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. How could these people block her path? Jiang Hao noticed her impatience. Then, a spiritual flame ignited in his eyes. The oppressive aura of the return to Void Realm enveloped the other person. In an instant, the blue-robed woman's spiritual sense surged, subconsciously bowing her head. These two people were not in the Golden Core realm. They were even stronger. Do you mind if I buy some tea from you? Asked Jiang Hao. No, I don't mind. The person nodded. In the end, Jiang Hao spent 15,000 spirit stones. He bought a pack of red azure tea and another pack of ancient spirit tea. With over 390,000 spirit stones remaining, it seemed they couldn't be spent entirely. After that, Hong Yuye arrived at a riverside. Instead of walking forward, she asked Jiang how to build a pavilion there. She wanted to drink tea here. Jiang Hao immediately began to cut some wood. He had already finished building a pavilion in less than half a day. Only then did Hong Yuye sit inside and let Jiang Hao brew some tea. She sat there for 3 days. Jiang Hao noticed that the tea was finished. Only azure red tea remained now. He looked for others to buy more tea. Luckily, he found some people who were selling them. He spent another 20,000 and bought all the tea from others. It should be enough for a month or two. He had 360,000 spirit stones. Suddenly, it had reduced by over 30,000. It was really terrifying. Who would have thought drinking tea could be this expensive? Under the pavilion, Jiang Hao was curious about what Hong Yuye was doing. He asked but didn't get an answer. Jiang Hao sat down to read a book. Before, he couldn't understand the 5th form of the heavenly blade, but now, he could thoroughly study and attempt to use it. Even the mountain sea seal was easy to study. When his cultivation was weak, he couldn't use its power, but it was different now. However, he had to take it one step at a time. He began by studying the 5th form of the heavenly blade. Jiang Hao started reading in an attempt to understand the content before using the sword technique. He activated the clear and pure heart ability. Half a day later, Jiang Hao finally understood the 5th form of the heavenly blade. The form was called inquiry. One state of mind and spiritual consciousness could be used to cut the opponent's state of mind without drawing blood. This form suited those with exceptional states of mind. For those with an ordinary state of mind, this form wouldn't work. But inquiry could consolidate one's state of mind, heart, and spiritual consciousness. It used the blade to nurture the mind, and the mind to forge the blade. This is just the 5th form, and it's already so powerful. I wonder what the final 2 forms would be. Just mastering this one seemed like it would take a long time. He also brewed more tea. Jiang Hao drank a cup of tea while reading the book. In the middle of it all, he went out for a while and bought some pastries. He then continued reading while drinking tea until early November. On that day, he felt a change and slowly closed his eyes. He felt like he was about to understand this form, and the heaven lock technique operated within his body. It provided a clearer understanding of his consciousness. The divine might also followed suit. It seemed like everything was aiding his understanding of this form. Without these foundations, it might have taken Jiang Hao a very long time to master the form, but it didn't seem so difficult now. In an instant, Jiang Hao felt the world quieting down. Everything around him stopped. He sat alone in the pavilion and looked at the mountains, rivers, and streams. The strange feeling worried him. He couldn't sense the outside world. It seemed like he was trapped in it. At that moment, a blade appeared in his hand out of nowhere. He stared at the blade for a long time and got lost in his thoughts. He returned to his senses after a long time. Inquiry. He looked at the mountain, rivers, and streams ahead. He understood the significance of this form. Heavenly blade inquiry. It slashes others and slashes oneself. At that moment, he lifted the blade in his hand without hesitation. In that instant, his state of mind and spiritual consciousness were like a blade. The blade light swept through everything. Boom Jiang Hao opened his eyes under the rain pavilion. He looked at the woman drinking tea opposite him and felt calm again. He had mastered the 5th form of the heavenly blade. At that moment, he was stronger than before and understood the heavenly blade better. He felt impulsive to test it out. Pour the tea, Hong Yuye said. Hearing this, Jiang Hao immediately began pouring the tea. At Moon Lake, the fallen immortal clan had arrived. They had been chasing after Jiang Xiaoli all along. At first, they thought they would find her in the blood-tide forest. After going there, they discovered the other party had come to Moon Lake. After that, they found out that she had left for the 1,000-feet mountain. How could a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator be so fast? The young man asked. Let's not worry about it for now. We have to catch her first, the middle-aged man said. With them was a woman in a black robe. She was frowning. After hesitating for a moment, she followed them. With their speed, it wouldn't take long for them to catch up with Jiang Xiaoli. Chapter 797, Sister-in-law. Here the sun was warm and pleasant. Jiang Hao sat in the pavilion drinking tea. It had been a long time since he returned to the mine. He wondered if Dole and the others had gone back. The spirit stones were still with him. He hadn't split it with them. It made him feel worried. The boundary of the corpse realm would soon close. He had entered in June, and now it was November. 5 months had passed. 6 months later, the corpse realm would close. Actually, he had another idea. He wanted to find Guan Zhongfei. He could have him take one of the golden rings to the west. If needed, he could go there. But the west was too dangerous. Once that corpse was awakened, going there would be like walking into a lion's den. There was no reason for him to go. Although it was related to the end of all things, there was no news about the stone tablet, so there was no need to worry about it unless there was confirmation that the ancient sage's page had appeared in the western region. Jiang Hao decided to stay in the sect and manage the spirit herbs as usual. Perhaps due to the improvement in his cultivation, he had an urge to go out. Being at the early stage of the Immortal Ascension platform was remarkable. Jiang Hao thought several times about the pavilion master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, whose strength far surpassed his own. Once he encountered him outside, it would be a matter of life and death. Another half a month passed in this way. Jiang Hao found Guan Zhongfei. He had heard that a strong individual was staying here and came over to take a look. It turned out to be Jiang Hao, and there was a woman with him. She seemed to be at the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. If this cultivator pretending to be in the middle stage of the golden core realm could kill him with one slash, wouldn't she be the same? He was very respectful. Greetings, seniors. He took out all the spirit stones from the last sale. It was a total of 60,000 spirit stones. Although it wasn't as many as last time, he did his best. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. He remained calm. There didn't seem to be any issues with whatever Gong Zhongfei had said. After receiving the spirit stones, Jiang Hao talked to Guan Zhongfei. When they were in an isolated place, Jiang Hao said, adding the previous 15,000, it's a total of 210,000. The corpse realm is about to close, so you don't need to come looking for me again. You can continue selling the remaining ores, but I'll deduct 2,000 from yours. After that, the stones from the sales will all be yours. It's the same for Dole. You can tell him the same. Guan Zhongfei had no objection to it. 21,000 in total, 1,000 is mine. The remaining 200,000. I'll take 80,000, and you and Dole take 20,000 each. That'll be a total of 120,000. You and Dole each have 40,000 from the ores sold. These ores will belong to you, Jiang Hao said. Any questions? No. None at all. Guan Zhongfei bowed to him. They were making a profit. There must still be quite a lot on Dole's side, and they could also sell a fair number of ores for spirit stones. After handing over the 80,000 spirit stones, Jiang Hao said, if you don't find Dole after leaving the corpse realm, then give the spirit stones to him when you're outside. Well, Guan Zhongfei was very happy to receive the spirit stones, but Dole's matter was not that simple. After hesitating for a moment, he said, if, after we go out, what if Dole isn't alive? Then, you should still deliver the spirit stones, Jiang Hao said. Guan Zhongfei felt bitter but didn't dare to refuse. Jiang Hao stood in place. He was silent for some time. Finally, he took out a golden ring. Take this. Put it in your residence and activate it with a technique. As he spoke, a mountain sea seal struck Guan Zhongfei's forehead. He was greatly shocked. He felt a tremendous weight pressing down on him. It was as though that weight could press down on an entire mountain. This terrifying power made him shiver. Jiang Hao comforted him. No need to worry. Once you do it, the item will disappear along with the one on your forehead. All right. Guan Zhongfei could only nod. After teaching him how to activate the golden ring, Jiang Hao let him leave. Now, he had 280,000 spirit stones. That was still a lot. The incarnation of the immortal peach tree only required about 50,000 spirit stones. That would leave him with 230,000. There were many things he could do. As for the golden ring, He would bury one for now. Perhaps he would need to go there soon. If not needed, after activating the ring, he could go and retrieve it or hide it in another place. The only concern was whether this person would activate it. He didn't have many subrings left. There was one with Xiao Li and another with the spirit beast. There was one at home, one in the corpse realm, another with Guan Zhongfei and Hong Yuye. That made a total of 6 rings. He only had the main ring and 2 subrings left. It was barely enough. As he returned, Jiang Hao frowned. He sensed someone approaching Hong Yuye, and it was a familiar aura. "Sister-in-law," said someone loudly. Jiang Hao was speechless. He felt his scalp tingle. He wanted to leave as soon as possible. One word from Xiao Li could mean their deaths. If Hong Yuye was offended, it would be the end. Fortunately, Hong Yuye did not erupt with a terrifying aura. Jiang Hao could only wait and watch. He could pretend not to have heard Xiao Li. This way, it would be much safer. Xiao Li was outspoken, so maybe it wasn't a big deal. Just because she called out didn't mean Hong Yuye would have heard it. As for the other 3 individuals, they were just Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. After a moment, Jiang Hao walked over to her. He headed upstream along the river. He saw Xiao Li standing in front of Hong Yuye and talking happily. She even ate a piece of pastry from the table. The 3 people behind her stood in the pavilion and didn't dare speak. But they were curious. Jiang Xiao Li's senior sister seemed to be only at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Her senior brother might not be much stronger. However, she didn't seem to understand Jiang Xiao Li's relationship with this late Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. At first, Xiao Li called the woman sister-in-law and corrected herself and called her senior sister. At that moment, they heard footsteps. When they turned to look, they only saw an ordinary-looking man. He was at the Golden Core realm. For a moment, they still felt that Jiang Xiao Li was the most formidable among them. Perhaps they didn't know how formidable she truly was. It wasn't that they looked down on Golden Core realm cultivators. It was just that Jiang Xiao Li was too terrifying. At that moment, Xiao Li also looked over. "Senior brother Jiang." She ran over to him. Jiang Hao looked at Xiao Li and took out some dried meat. He handed them to her. "Thank you, senior brother Jiang," Xiao Li said excitedly. "Why did you come here?" Jiang Hao asked softly. The blood-tide forest was not close to here, and it was not easy to get here. It was the spirit beast. Xiao Li carefully placed the dried meat on the table. The beast's influence can also be used here. Its friends on the road helped us find the way. Spirit beast. Jiang Hao was surprised. He also understood that the spirit beast was famous in the corpse realm. It wasn't that everyone knew the beast in this place, but anyone who didn't know it was beaten up by Xiao Li. Looking at the dragon pearl, Jiang Hao found that there was little power left inside. It seemed that Xiao Li had not hesitated to use her powers all the way here. Chapter 798. It turns out we met a powerful senior. Xiao Li's unexpected arrival didn't have much impact on them. What Jiang Hao was more concerned about wasn't the trouble Xiao Li might bring, but whether it would anger Hong Yuye. However, the plan was flawed. With the dragon pearl, Xiao Li was unrivaled in the corpse realm. She didn't need practice at all. It took some time for Jiang Hao to ask about what Xiao Li had done from the 3 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. There was no food left, so they didn't linger in the blood tide forever. After that, they captured a lightning beast and hurried here. They didn't explain it clearly, but Jiang Hao understood everything. For food, Xiao Li would go to great lengths. These things didn't matter. But now he knew that Xiao Li would always find her way to him even if he set her free. That would bring trouble. Xiao Li sat beside Hong Yuye and talked about everything she had seen along the way. "Senior sister, I saw something strange under the trees, and it looked at me sneakily," Xiao Li said. "It felt weird, so I glanced back at it, and then, it ran away. I don't know what it was." While Xiao Li talked, Jiang Hao listened. Was there something strange under the blood-tide forest? It wasn't entirely impossible. Some places were simply inaccessible, whether during the night or the day. There was always a need to retreat somewhere safe. Even when a place appeared safe, it had lingering danger inside. If one avoided it, they'd be fine. Therefore, the eerie kind of danger always existed but was outside the rules. If anyone didn't follow the blood-tide forest's rules, they might encounter the danger head-on. Are you planning to stay here? Jiang Hao asked by Shuang and the other two. Huh. The three were a bit nervous. This place wasn't the blood-tide forest. Once they left Jiang Xiaoli, it would be very dangerous. The danger didn't just come from others. It was also from the environment. We need to help Senior Jiang Xiaoli find food, Bai Shuang quickly said. Once they run out of their usefulness, they might be abandoned. That was most terrifying for them. Jiang Hao knew their concerns. You're overthinking. I just wanted to ask, don't you plan to seek opportunities? Seek opportunities? The three looked at each other. They thought that the opportunities here were for strong people and didn't dare to think about it. Yes, opportunities. Jiang Hao nodded. These three people were all on the verge of reaching the Golden Core Realm. As long as they obtained opportunities, they could ascend to the Golden Core Realm. There might be no one who ventured into the 1,000-feet mountain for opportunities since they were useless to them. Our cultivation is low, and we don't dare to take risks here, said Bai Shuang. Jiang Hao said, go on. There shouldn't be anyone here in the 1,000-feet mountain to trouble you. That made them feel awkward. How could a Golden Core Realm cultivator say such things? But they didn't dare to speak out or refuse. Don't worry. Senior brother doesn't lie, Xiao Li said. Hong Yuye turned to look at Jiang Hao and smirked. Bai Shuang and the other two smiled bitterly. They had no choice but to leave. They felt that they were being pushed away. They had come all the way and faced hardships to get Xiao Li here, yet they were being abandoned now. The three took a few steps ahead and looked back at Xiao Li. They hoped she would tell them to stay. But in the end, Jiang Xiao Li didn't say anything. After leaving the pavilion, they walked cautiously away. The sky was clear, but disaster could strike at any moment. They were lucky. They had walked for half a day without any problems. Then, they realized that their luck was not just good, it was extraordinary. Not long after, they saw a glowing tree. There were 9 fruits on the tree. There was no one around. It seems like it's about to ripen, Bai Shuang said. Will beasts be guarding them? Zhong Fahu asked worriedly. Doesn't seem like it, said a woman as she looked around. The three dared not relax and approached cautiously. Soon, they arrived at the tree. The fruits were ripe. They wanted to pluck them quickly and leave. However, at that moment, 2 auras approached. A man and a woman's aura collided. The two fought. Fellow Daoist, I found it first, said the woman in grey robes. You must be joking. I was here first, said the man with a stubble. Bai Shuang and the other two trembled. They even found it difficult to move. At that moment, the two figures negotiated and went their separate ways. However, when they came down, they found 3 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators standing there. Bai Shuang hurriedly said, please forgive us, seniors. We just happened to pass by and had no other intentions. It's best that way, said the man with a stubble. In an instant, an intense pressure spread. However, just as the pressure was about to touch the three, a purple aura circulated around them. In an instant, the man with stubble saw a pair of eyes. That gaze looked at him as if it could shake the heavens and earth. Instantly, the fire of his spirit burned. The man with stubble was terrified and instinctively took a few steps back. Fortunately, the fire of his spirit vanished. The woman in the grey robe beside him didn't feel anything, but she noticed something unusual. Where are you three from? She asked, but quickly realized her question was wrong and corrected herself. Do you know anyone here? We followed a senior here. She's at a pavilion nearby, Bai Shuang said. Ah, so you are here on behalf of those 2 seniors, said the man with a stubble and laughed. Since you are here, we can all share. There is enough for everyone. He turned to the grey-robed woman. What do you think? The woman in grey robes quickly nodded. Yes, that's right. So, should we split them 3 ways? The two looked at Bai Shuang and the others. At that moment, they felt a bit strange, as if their status had changed. Their opponents' wariness was visible on their faces. What were they wary of? Jiang Xiaoli? That was impossible. They were talking about two seniors, after all. The two. In an instant, they realized their mistake. Jiang Xiaoli's senior brother wasn't joking. He really wanted them to have opportunities here. What he said was true. No one would trouble them in the 1,000-feet mountain. They had encountered the most powerful seniors without even realizing it. Opportunities were right in front of them, and they had nearly missed it. After dividing the fruits, the two politely bid them farewell. Then, they left. "Do you think we are being looked after by an unknown senior?" Bai Shuang asked. The other two nodded. They followed Jiang Xiaoli to survive. Unexpectedly, they had run into opportunities with a senior's protection. Chapter 799, disappeared in the blink of an eye. At the 1,000-feet mountain, the two from the fallen immortal clan chased someone for a long time before finally locking onto their target. Throughout the pursuit, something felt strange. Jiang Xiaoli's speed was unusually fast. They couldn't figure out how she could be this fast. It seemed like even demonic beasts couldn't escape her pursuit. The situation made them frown in confusion. Since they had begun chasing her, odd things kept happening. However, with things having come to this point, there was no turning back. The woman in a black robe was trailing behind. She was lost in thought. "Do you have more information?" the middle-aged man asked. "I heard that Smiling San Sheng is here," the woman in a black robe said. "Smiling San Sheng?" The middle-aged man frowned. "How did he get in? Can he get in at his cultivation realm?" Smiling San Sheng had been quite lively lately, but the fallen immortal clan didn't know much about him. They only knew his cultivation was high. So how did he manage to enter? The woman in the black robe didn't know either. Perhaps Smiling San Sheng wasn't as strong as they thought. No one had ever witnessed Smiling San Sheng engaging with powerful individuals. The three people hurried further inside. If they were not mistaken, Jiang Xiaoli was nearby. In the evening, the three arrived at a riverbank, where a pavilion could be seen along the river's course. There were three people in the pavilion. It was Jiang Xiaoli, a man, and a woman. The man was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. The woman was in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. The black-robed woman's eye twitched. The two members of the fallen immortal clan strode forward. As long as Jiang Xiaoli was here, they had to take her away. Jiang Hao was making tea while Xiaoli was eating. Almost everything Jiang Hao had ended up in her belly. Her appetite was growing. It seemed she was growing and eating more and more. Fortunately, she had picked some fruits with rich spiritual energy nearby, which should be enough for a while. He had long noticed the three people by the riverbank. Some of them wanted to retreat. He didn't mind. They couldn't escape anyway. The black-robed woman reminded him of Feng Hua's avatar. Regardless of whether it was her or not, it would be confirmed shortly. Letting them escape now was pointless. They wouldn't get far anyway. In the past, they might have succeeded. But now, it wasn't easy. "Who are you?" Xiao Li asked as she approached them. Hong Yuye sipped her tea. She was not very talkative. She spent her time listening to Xiao Li's stories. She would speak one word to Xiao Li's whole sentence. Jiang Hao would then remind Xiao Li to talk less and eat more. "Jiang Xiao Li?" asked the middle-aged man from the fallen immortal clan. "That's me." Xiao Li nodded. "Our clan wants to invite you as a guest," said the young man of the fallen immortal clan. Xiao Li thought about it somberly. "Is it far? If it's too far, I need to ask my senior brother." Jiang Hao poured tea for Hong Yuye. He couldn't help but find it amusing that Xiao Li was actually thinking about the offer seriously. She truly believed that these people wanted to invite her as a guest. Jiang Hao looked up at the newcomers. One was in the Immortal Ascension platform, while the other one was at the peak of the Return to Void realm. They were safe because they had two talismans on them. They were very powerful talismans. Even if Jiang Hao managed to take them, he couldn't learn them. The fallen immortal clan was remarkable. They possessed such methods. As for how they managed to find their way here, that wasn't surprising. After all, these people could find out about him from afar. It was remarkable. Unfortunately, these people were unlikely to speak about their clan's plans. Initially, Jiang Hao didn't intend to ask much, but since they wanted to take Xiao Li away, he ultimately had to step in. What do you need Xiao Li for? Friend, what do you wish to know? The middle-aged man felt that the person before him was not ordinary. Jiang Hao glanced at them. He activated the daily appraisal. He had wanted to save that ability to appraise the black-robed woman, but he wanted to find out what they were after for Xiao Li's sake. As for the woman in the black robe, he could ask about her at the gathering. Hellion, member of the fallen immortal clan. In the immortal ascension realm. He came to the corpse realm to complete a task for the clan and capture Jiang Xiao Li. The immortal seed is about to bloom, and watering it with her blood can make it bloom smoothly. Is the immortal seed about to bloom? Does it require Xiao Li's blood? Jiang Hao asked. This sudden question shocked Hellion. Without hesitation, the power of the return to void realm gathered in his hand and struck toward the person in front of him. Boom! A palm strike erupted with immense force. Hellion had expected to at least repel the opponent, but he didn't even manage to land his attack. A shadow of a mountain and sea suddenly appeared among them. A heavy aura emanated from the mountain and sea and pressed down on him. Boom! A single strike inflicted severe injuries on him. This terrifying power was not something from the return to void realm. Friend, there are no hard feelings between us, Hellion said. Although Xiao Li calls me senior brother, I also happen to be her elder brother, said Jiang Hao as he stepped forward with his half-moon blade. If you act against her, I can't just sit and do nothing. He used the fifth form of the heavenly blade, inquiry. Seeing the opponent wield his blade, Hellion shouted, and the immortal ascension platform's power burst forth. In that case, friend, don't expect an easy time from me either. The immortal ascension platform's power emerged. The space distorted and an endless black sea manifested. The half-moon blade struck. Hellion felt his heart shatter, and his primordial spirit was on the verge of collapse. Instead of dying right away, he chose to watch the person before him die alongside him. Crack! The heavenly cauldron shattered, and the distorted black sea enveloped Jiang Hao. At that moment, he brought out the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. Subsequently, the space stabilized. Everything returned to normal. Hellion watched in astonishment. Finally, his primordial spirit collapsed, and he died. Even in death, he couldn't understand what happened. Jiang Hao sighed. He struck twice more and casually took the storage treasure. Having done so, he headed toward the pavilion. He noticed that the other members of the fallen immortal clan were nowhere to be seen. When he asked Xiao Li, she said, they probably went home. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiang Hao was speechless. Disappeared in the blink of an eye. Instinctively, he looked at Hong Yuye, who was still drinking her tea. Chapter 800, The Wrath of the Western Sects U. The two members of the fallen immortal clan had died just like that. It didn't cause any commotion. Jiang Hao had thought he would need to take action, but he was surprised to find that they had already been dealt with. He didn't know why Hong Yuye had intervened. But whenever she intervened, it was a sure death for the enemy. He felt a bit concerned about whether it was thoroughly handled. Senior brother, should I go visit their place? Xiao Li asked curiously. No need. Jiang Hao sipped his tea calmly. It's too far. They decided not to take you along and went back on their own. That's a shame. I wanted to take the beast to see them too, Xiao Li said excitedly. I wonder if the beast's influence would work well there. They should be quite useful here in this remote place. Jiang Hao looked at her but didn't say anything. Perhaps as Xiao Li grew older, she would understand why the beast's influence was so significant here. Xiao Li was still young and full of energy. Jiang Hao watched her. Hong Yuye was looking at her as well. Did you act like this when you were young? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. Jiang Hao said, maybe. When he was a child, he was always playing around and getting scolded. From the age of 4 or 5, He started cutting firewood and occasionally went out to play but never knew why he couldn't play with the others. Perhaps at that time, he had lost his innocence. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. He was already 36 years old. Perhaps he would never see the people he grew up with again. If you were so lively as a child, how come your enthusiasm had decreased so much? Hong Yuye asked. It's always good to be cautious, Jiang Hao said. He lived very carefully. When his cultivation realm increased, he inevitably became a bit conceited. So, he was reckless sometimes. Although he tried hard to control it, his state of mind was not good. That was the side effect of rapid advancement. He felt like he wanted to spar with someone of a similar realm and try the fifth form of Heavenly Blade once again. Helion looked like he had reached the immortal ascension platform, but in reality, he only dared to use the power of the return to Void Realm. Once he used the immortal ascension platform, he would enter an endless Black Sea. He didn't understand what the Black Sea was. Based on what Old Man Corpse Sea had said, he knew the dangers of entering the corpse realm. There was a glimmer of hope of him surviving since he had left an imprint on Heavenly Steely Mountain. Don't you find it boring? Hong Yuye looked at Xiao Li. Are you happy with how you're living? No. Jiang Hao shook his head and answered truthfully. Xiao Li and the spirit beast are the happiest I've seen them. I can't compare to them. Wouldn't it be better to be carefree and happy? Hong Yuye asked. It probably wouldn't. After all, I'm not young anymore, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye was surprised. How old are you? I'm 36, Jiang Hao said. Under normal circumstances, by the age of 36, people would have married and had children. That's quite old. Hong Yuye chuckled and didn't say anything more. Jiang Hao fell silent. In the following days, Jiang Hao wandered around the 1,000-feet mountain with Xiao Li and Hong Yuye. There were some strange places with extremely powerful auras along the way, which he didn't dare approach. Whether it was the blood-tide forest or other places, they all had peculiarities. He couldn't be careless. He didn't know what was hidden inside. Perhaps the Old Man Corpse Sea would know something, but he couldn't ask anymore. The trip to the corpse realm had revealed quite a bit of information. At least he understood that there was a possibility for him to enter the corpse realm even when it was closed. Secondly, he knew that the Old Man Corpse Sea could leave with the help of the end of all things. The corpse in the western region might also awaken soon. Apart from that, the ancient sage's page might reveal the connection between the corpse realm and the outside world. Xiao Li had also caught the attention of the fallen immortal clan, and it seemed the immortal seed was about to bloom. Over a month later, in early January, Jiang Hao noticed a reaction in the heaven, earth, and human yuan formations. They could leave now. They had traveled to many places by then. On the way, Jiang Hao remembered the charm goddess. He had tried to find her but found no trace. During that time, he didn't see Guan Zhongfei and hadn't encountered Dole either. Dole's situation was very dangerous. Whether he could survive after leaving the realm was entirely up to fate. He had already done everything he could. Senior, we should leave now, Jiang Hao said. After more than half a year, he entered the immortal ascension realm and obtained a lot of spirit stones. He was satisfied. Hong Yuye looked up at the heaven, earth, and human yuan formation. Then, she leaped up and dashed toward the formation. Jiang Hao didn't know what she was planning to do. He wanted to instruct Xiao Li, but she had already soared into the sky. Jiang Hao quickly followed them. It might have been an illusion, but Xiao Li seemed to be freely swimming within the large formation. Her understanding of the formation surpassed an ordinary disciple's. Her talent was extraordinary. She was not inferior in talent to Mi Ling Yu. At that moment, countless people chose to leave the corpse realm. Guan Zhongfei was one of them. He hadn't met Dole, so he had over 10,000 spirit stones. There were still some ores left. This time, he earned a lot of spirit stones. He was very satisfied. As he walked out of the teleportation gate, he noticed several people waiting nearby. Master, he said in greeting to the man in front. A man with white hair nodded. This time, the gains were not small, was it? Yes. Guan Zhongfei nodded. The location for the corpse realm flower of the divine rotation sect was not far from the corpse realm. There were a total of 12 peaks, and Guan Zhongfei emerged at the central peak. Senior members of the sect were waiting there. As a true disciple, he immediately caught their attention. Junior brother Guan, it seems has made significant progress in your cultivation realm, said a man with a smile. Guan Zhongfei nodded with a smile. He had indeed encountered many opportunities. He noticed some teaching elders present. If he wasn't mistaken, there would be a storm brewing here shortly. 2 true disciples of the divine rotation sect died at the hands of smiling San Sheng, and all of this was tied to Dole from the Mountain River Valley sect. The Mountain River Valley sect wasn't far from their location, and perhaps it wouldn't be long before they demanded an answer. The divine rotation sect was a major sect in the western region, while the Mountain River Valley sect was just a small sect in the west. An ordinary inner sect disciple like Dole would find it hard to escape punishment. After a short wait, Guan Zhongfei saw the people from his sect coming out one after another. However, the 2 teaching elders didn't find the people they were waiting for. Shortly after, they looked shocked and then angry. Dole? Dole from the Mountain River Valley sect? Are you sure? Angry voices reverberated all around. Many people were left puzzled. Guan Zhongfei sighed. He knew that Dole's problems had begun. It wasn't just the divine rotation sect. Other sects in the western region might be asking the same questions. Soon, Dole from the Mountain River Valley sect became a name remembered by numerous powerful individuals. Moreover, many immediately set out at night to demand justice. They would interrogate him to uncover the mastermind behind the scenes. Regardless of whether the culprit was revealed, his death was inevitable. Chapter 801. Dole has no choice. At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao walked out from the corpse realm flower. 4 people had entered from the sect, but only 3 emerged. They were Jiang Hao, Xiao Li, and Zhuge Zheng. Yin Xuanyi from the Heavenly Gate sect hadn't come out. Jiang Hao knew why. How would smiling San Sheng's killing spree connect to him anyway? After that, he visited his master along with Xiao Li. His own situation wasn't much of his master's concern, but Xiao Li's circumstances would certainly be a point of interest. Jiang Hao stood by quietly with his head bowed. In the courtyard, Ku Wu Chang glared at Xiao Li. You didn't cultivate inside, he asked. I was hungry, Xiao Li muttered and bowed her head. Ku Wu Chang stared at her. Were you sleeping all the time inside as well? I was too hungry to sleep, Xiao Li said. Ku Wu Chang fell silent for a long time. Xiao Li, with her head still down, seemed to realize she was in trouble. Jiang Hao glanced at her and stood quietly. The cliff master wouldn't ask him much, which was a good thing. After all, it was not easy to explain. After a long time, Ku Wu Chang waved his hand. He gestured for Xiao Li to leave because he didn't want to see her anymore. Jiang Hao also wanted to leave, but the cliff master stopped him. Do you have any orders for me, master? Was Xiao Li in danger inside? Ku Wu Chang asked. Junior sister Xiao Li has exceptional talent and innate divine power, so, Jiang Hao didn't continue. He wanted to say she swept away everything that stood in her way. No one was her match. She naturally didn't need to cultivate. Ku Wu Chang was only concerned because he knew Xiao Li had exceptional talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't be worried. He sighed wearily. Jiang Hao also left. After spending so much time in the corpse realm, he needed to check his house. He wanted to see if Gui would arrive soon. He also needed to be careful of Feng Hua. He finally found the black-robed woman he encountered inside. She tried desperately to find a way out but couldn't do it. Jiang Hao had appraised her. Indeed, she was Feng Hua's avatar. She had been trying to shock him and Xiao Li by appearing inside. However, she ultimately failed. She wasn't afraid of death at first, but she was terrified now when she realized she couldn't get out of the realm. She wanted to spread the information she had found. Unfortunately, everything was in vain. Jiang Hao talked with her curiously for a while but gained nothing in the end. It seemed the avatar's knowledge was limited. Thus, she died just like that. Her storage treasure was also empty. Everyone from the fallen immortal clan had nothing. They were quite poor. Jiang Hao didn't rush to leave. He observed the peach tree. The fruits were ripe by now. He wondered who had eaten the fruits. He would have to wait until October of this year for the incarnation. He had sufficient spirit stones, so there was nothing to worry about. After that, he sat on the floor of his room and calmed his state of mind. He also waited for Guan Zhongfei's message. It shouldn't take long for him to make a choice. The next day, Jiang Hao finally sensed the ring. It seemed Guan Zhongfei had made his decision. With that, he relaxed a bit and waited. Starting today, he would consolidate his mental state and attend to the spirit herb garden peacefully. Apart from these tasks, he also needed to check how long it would take for the heavenly fragrance Dao flower to give some more bubbles. If there was nothing unexpected, it should take 11 days. By that account, it would take 3 years for him to accumulate 200 bubbles. It's going to take quite some time, but it'll pass quickly. Planting more spirit herbs will take less time. He sighed and got up to head to the spirit herb garden. His daily, peaceful routine began yet again. Dole hesitated when he found out that he could leave. Someone had informed him that the powerful individual who had rescued him had killed many people. No one could find that person, so everyone would blame him for everything. Many of the individuals who were killed were talented disciples from Western sects. It was evident that they would find someone to blame. Dole knew that the person who had warned him of this had good intentions. He had even told him not to leave the corpse realm. Leaving would mean death. However, staying here would also mean death. Although he appeared to have a choice on the surface, he actually didn't have one. If it weren't for that senior, perhaps he would have died long ago. He was alive just by chance, so he still wanted to return and live his life. Even if he faced death, he could do it with certainty. What saddened him was that he had plenty of spirit stones from selling the ores, but he hadn't been able to split them with his 2 team members. He wanted to leave everything to them before his death. However, he found the mine deserted. The spirit herbs were still there. It seemed someone had left the place for a while but hadn't returned. Or perhaps they had met some danger. Dole didn't know what happened to smiling San Sheng. He waited there for a long time, but no one came. That was disappointing. Guan Zhongfei might also face a grim future because of the incident related to him. Until the end, he waited at the entrance of the mine. He waited for one more day before packing up the spiritual herbs and leaving. If possible, he wanted to leave some of it for them. He feared he wouldn't get the chance in the future. He needed to figure out what to do with so many spirit stones. When he emerged, his fellow sect members looked over at him and stepped back. They kept their distance. Some looked puzzled. Dole kept his head down. He didn't dare look them in the eye. He exchanged greetings with some seniors and left quickly. He knew that soon everyone would know about the incident in the corpse realm. He might be left out or even observed carefully. His sect couldn't afford to offend powerful people. Sure enough, the next day, a senior brother found him. He told Dole not to leave the sect for a while. He also told Dole that it was inevitable that other sects would be here to meet him. Many sects had already sent requests for a visit. Dole understood that, despite his disappointment and fear, he could only face his fate calmly. He had no choice. Despite achieving the Golden Core realm, he didn't have a high status within the sect. Nobody paid much attention to him. He had helped a senior and earned a slot in exchange. That was why he was in the corpse realm. But that was it. He could only wait for the other sects to visit and declare his fate. It would be better if they could do it early. At least, he wouldn't suffer too much. But, who would choose to die when they had a reason to live? Dole had intended to go out of his house and help the juniors, but he dared not step out. He thought that if he associated with them, then they would get hurt too. One day, a senior sister found him. She was among the top 10 disciples in the sect. Her visit surprised Dole, but it also made him curious. A woman in a purple dress stood before Dole's house. "You're the same Dole that everyone has been talking about?" "Yes." "Greetings, Senior Sister Lin," said Dole respectfully. "Many powerful individuals have arrived in the sect. Aren't you planning to escape?" Senior Sister Lin asked. One should take responsibility for their actions. If I leave, it will only cause trouble for the sect. Ha ha ha. You can't escape even if you want to, can you? If you could, I don't think you'd be here acting all noble. Senior Sister Lin chuckled. Dole remained silent. It was true. He couldn't escape. He had to accept it. He was trying to act honorable to console himself. He didn't know if this was a tragedy. Chapter 802. It was Dole today. Tomorrow, Dole listened quietly with a bitter smile. Senior Sister Lin, please spare me. He still hoped to survive. But everyone knew that no one would give him that chance. Since that was the case, why bother begging for something impossible? At least for now, it seemed a bit like not causing trouble for his sect. It was a bit of a contribution. I've understood the whole situation. It isn't your fault, and the sect shouldn't restrict your freedom. But the sect is small, and there's no way around it. So, I wanted to ask you, is there anything you want to do but can't? Senior Sister Lin kindly asked. Dole breathed a sigh of relief. He had something he needed to do. Yes. What is it? Senior Sister Lin asked curiously. I met two people in the corpse realm. We were mining together to earn some spirit stones, but they disappeared in the last few months. I couldn't deliver their share of spirit stones to them. How many spirit stones? 70,000. If you are willing to help me, I can give you 20,000 spirit stones. Please find a way to deliver the rest to them. There are also some ores left. 70,000? Senior Sister Lin was surprised. 70,000 was not a small amount. A golden core realm cultivator with so many spirit stones was still willingly offering them to someone else. Was he truly this selfless? Sure. Senior Sister Lin nodded with a smile. Dole hesitated but eventually agreed. He might lose the chance, so even if she took the spirit stones for herself, he had no choice but to agree. Once he was taken away, his possessions would be confiscated anyway. In the end, Dole gave her 70,000 spirit stones and some ores. After receiving them, she left. Dole was left standing alone. He didn't know if he had been played. He could only quietly wait for people from other sects to arrive. 7 days later, people from a major sect came to visit. Many people knew the reason. The visit had to do with Dole. Dole was so powerful in the realm, but now, it's all so tragic. Yeah. Although I didn't enter, I know that for someone at the Golden Core realm to act so arrogantly in front of a primordial spirit realm wouldn't be taken lightly. It's beyond his capabilities. His downfall is unavoidable. In truth, Dole is innocent. He has no choice. Don't say such things. What can our sect do anyway? Sure. How can you say that? The people of the Mountain River Valley sect were ready to do what needed to be done. When they were about to hand over Dole, another sect arrived. At that moment, they started discussing. Dole thought he would face his death today. But he didn't expect them to discuss his fate for 7 consecutive days. People from nearby sects also arrived. Dole's fate became even more difficult to decide with more people present. They planned to conduct an interrogation outside the Mountain River Valley sect. When Dole was taken away by 2 senior brothers, he felt despair. He had prepared himself to be taken away, but he wasn't prepared for an interrogation. Many people in the sect knew him. Some juniors looked up to him. He had always been reliable. He now felt ashamed. This was a fatal blow to him. At that moment, he even thought of harming himself just to avoid this. At least, he wouldn't have to endure such humiliation. However, it was too late. His power was suppressed, and all he could do was stand there. Outside the valley, on a high platform, Dole stood in the middle. He was surrounded by 7 powerful people. Among them was a middle-aged man with some white hair who glared at Dole. "Did you cause the death of my disciple?" the man asked. Dole lowered his head and didn't dare speak. "Who murdered them?" the middle-aged man asked again. Still, Dole remained silent. The man raised a whip, charged with thunder, and lashed out. It tore Dole's flesh. Dole was in excruciating pain. "Speak. Perhaps we can spare your life," said an icy voice of a woman. Seeing that Dole remained unyielding, she attacked and left several bloody holes in Dole's thighs. At that moment, attacks and spells hurt Dole from all sides. His agonizing screams rang out. He couldn't take it anymore. He muttered something about smiling San Sheng, but it was only related to mining and nothing else. It wasn't what they wanted to hear. The techniques surged again. It was going to shatter Dole's soul. People from the Mountain River Valley sect felt regretful. Senior Sister Lin looked at the platform and shook her head sadly. Their sect was truly incompetent. They allowed these people to treat Dole in such a way at their own doorstep. What could a disciple like her do? Far away, Guan Zhongfei observed everything in hiding. He didn't dare approach Dole. He could only watch silently. As he had expected, Dole couldn't escape danger. Even if he wanted to give him his share of spirit stones, it was too late. The screams resonated everywhere. The people of the Mountain River Valley sect were silent. At first, they were watching the spectacle, but soon, they felt as if they were watching themselves being flogged. They realized that the sect wouldn't stand up for any of them. It was Dole today. Tomorrow, it could be them. His wretched screams struck their hearts. It made them feel sad and frustrated. However, no matter how much he screamed, the people of the Mountain River Valley sect didn't act. It disturbed Yang Yuezhi, who awoke from her meditation. She immediately stood up. Oh no, it's time. She had been waiting. Then, she had become so engrossed in her meditation that she was late. The screams rang in her ears once again. She turned to see a man chained on a platform. He was injured and bleeding. His soul was almost at its brink. Dole, I'll ask you once again, what information do you have about that person? Shouted an angry voice. Dole? Yang Yuezhi was shocked. At that moment, the whip of thunder was about to fall again. Dole, you asked for this. Your death is your own doing. In an instant, the onlookers knew Dole was doomed. With that strike, he wouldn't live for much longer. Guan Zhongfei sighed. The people of the Mountain River Valley sect also couldn't bear it. Dole's vision was blurry. He knew he couldn't hold on for much longer. However, just when everyone thought the whip of thunder was about to strike, slender hands grabbed it and stopped it. The sudden turn of events surprised everyone. It made the middle-aged man even angrier. How dare you meddle in affairs you know nothing about? Yang Yuezhi's anger flared as she looked at Dole, who was fatally injured. She had almost failed in her task. These people had almost ruined her chance of getting that book. A coldness emerged. She turned to look at the middle-aged man. Then, she vanished. Under everyone's gaze, she reappeared in front of the middle-aged man. Ink appeared out of thin air and covered the middle-aged man. With a bang, he was reduced to ashes. Those who had wanted to act watched in astonishment. This technique was of the Astronomical Academy. But why would someone from the Astronomical Academy appear here? Immortal, this is our personal matter. No matter how influential the Academy is, they cannot interfere in this, said the woman from before. At that moment, an elder said, the Astronomical Academy is outstanding, but they can't harass others like this. Guan Zhongfei was astonished. Why would someone from the Astronomical Academy come here? It was impossible. Chapter 803, I came for the benefits you. Yang Yuezhi felt so irritated and angry that she had the urge to end these people. She was getting angrier by the second. When she heard the woman speak, she almost lashed out. She was almost about to use her ultimate move to exterminate them. At the peak of her fury, she restrained herself. She didn't feel any better as she looked at the people gathered there. Instead, she felt even worse. She glanced at the heavily wounded Dole and the astonished crowd behind him. She looked furious. Anyone could push her off the edge with a simple word. It was quite unusual. After a while, she sensed something as if witnessing a transformation from the depths of her soul. She saw a scene of bloodshed. It was the arrogance of youth and a question posed to the heavens. The book in her hand began to emit a faint light. The contents flashed through her mind like a whispered song. It was as though the words were paving her path toward her cultivation. Yang Yuezhi felt surprised and sighed a little. The opportunity she had sought for a long time had been impossible to find. Yet, in the midst of her fury, she saw it. It was a revelation that set her on her path. What she thought she needed from the ancient and modern book was no longer necessary. She sighed heavily under the questioning gaze of the crowd, but she didn't speak. At that moment, several powerful auras surged from the side. They were grandmasters. They were stronger than her. We need an answer from you, immortal. We know the Astronomical Academy is extraordinary, but we are also not to be trifled with, said the middle-aged man. His imposing aura spread wide. The tremendous pressure shook Yang Yuezhi's mind. For a mere golden core realm cultivator, they had amassed such powers. What kind of hostility required such drastic actions? However, it did nothing for how angry she felt. Her rage was like a deluge that had burst the dam in her heart. Her aura soared, and an immortal intent was revealed deep within her. However, with that intent, her anger surged. It was like a roaring fire. Inner demons, Yang Yuezhi murmured softly. There wasn't much resistance to her power. After all, whatever she did came from her heart. Her inner and outer demons were the same. Do you really want an answer? Fine. Tell me what explanation you want to hear. Do you want me to explain why I killed someone just now, or are you looking for something else? She asked softly. Her aura changed again. It transformed from white to black. Everything merged into one. Dark and light. Saving someone or killing them. Her demons merged. There was no good or evil. Dole killed disciples of our sect. We want to question him in peace. Why did you stop us for no reason? Why did you attack our people? Does the Astronomical Academy want to be enemies with all our sects? Did you really think we wouldn't dare to lay hands on you to defend ourselves? Many voiced out their questions in contempt. These words rang in Yang Yuezhi's mind and ignited her fury further. The inner demon began to spread around her as if it wanted to drag her into itself. Her fury led to evil thoughts in her mind. She wanted to annihilate everything. Yang Yuezhi didn't act. She looked at the people in front of her. After a while, she took out an ancient scroll. There were 2 words on it, astronomical scroll. Please give us a straightforward response, an elder asked. Okay. Yang Yuezhi nodded and looked at the puzzled elder. The Astronomical Academy agrees to be an enemy with your sects. We will annihilate you. So, please inform your respective sects about this. In a month, the Astronomical Academy will come for you and destroy you. At that moment, Yang Yuezhi threw the scroll into the air, and an ancient aura swept through the surroundings. Yang Yuezhi, who was already enveloped by her inner demon, looked at everyone around her and declared, Dole is under the protection of the Astronomical Academy. If you touch him, the Astronomical Academy will be your enemy. Now, state your names and your sects. The Astronomical Academy gives you a month's time to prepare for the inevitable. The elder who spoke earlier was incredulous. He looked fearful. The astronomical scroll, everyone knew what it was. It represented the entire Astronomical Academy. How was it possible that such a powerful sect was taking action to protect someone like Dole at all costs? Who actually was Dole? Guan Zhongfei looked from afar. His heart raced. He had no idea what was happening. Someone from the Astronomical Academy not only had appeared out of thin air, but she also had brought along the one thing that represented her entire sect. She had asked for everyone's names and sects while threatening to annihilate them all. It felt surreal. Dole looked at the people before him in astonishment. He didn't understand what was happening. Senior, we were just passing by and gathered here when we saw a crowd. We were here by mistake. Please forgive us. Well, step back, said someone. Some of the people from the crown retreated. They didn't dare to say anything further. The astronomical scroll had appeared. Even if their sect's disciples had died in the corpse realm, a war with one of the major sects was dangerous. Who would dare to fight a major sect just for the sake of a few disciples? The elder also smiled weakly and admitted that it had been a mistake, and that they had got the wrong person. He apologized profusely. Yang Yuezhi didn't pay attention to these people. She knew their current retreat was only temporary. But as long as she held her ground, many would retreat. Nearly overwhelmed by evil thoughts, she composed herself and sensed that there was an old woman who absolutely wanted to kill Dole. If given a chance, she would act. She would have acted already if the situation allowed it. Time was running out. Yang Yuezhi looked at Dole. "I'll give you two choices. Please go on, senior," Dole said. Yang Yuezhi looked at Dole calmly, but her eyes were blood red. "After I give in to my enlightenment, my inner demon will be unleashed. Once that happens, I won't be able to spare you. The first choice is to immerse you within my inner demon. If I succeed in overcoming the demon, you'll gain immense benefits. You'll share my success in the cultivation path. However, if I fail, I'll perish, and so will you. The second choice is that I can exclude you from this and leave you be. However, there are so many people here who will risk offending the Astronomical Academy just to kill you. I will seek help from the Academy and provide you with a treasure for protection. But that'll be uncertain. The Academy might not arrive in time to help you. Both these choices have their own gains and losses. It's up to you. Will you choose to face life and death with me, or will you choose to face it alone? If I choose to face it alone, will they refrain from attacking you, senior?" Dole asked. Yang Yuezhi was stunned. Her rage seemed to dissipate a bit. She looked wise and ancient. She shook her head. "Don't worry about me. I came here for the benefits anyway." Chapter 804, Hoping to Meet the Senior You. At the Astronomical Academy, Jing Dajiang sat under a tree and enjoyed the cool breeze while sipping his coffee. Next to him were two elderly men. "That young girl is quite dangerous," said the one with a white beard. "I asked around about her. It seems she has been in the academy since very young, but she is a bit distant from others," said Jing Dajiang and chuckled while eating some peanuts. "But it's all right for now. She won't be a problem. She still lacks opportunities, which aren't easy to find. It might take 10 or even 100 years to take another step forward. When she gets there, I'll lend her a hand." "You gave her the astronomical scroll. What if it creates conflict with other sects?" asked the beardless old man. "Conflict with other sects?" Jing Dajiang laughed. "Do we look like pushovers? Do they look that tough? If they dare to engage in a fight with us, why would we back down? As long as that young girl remains tough, even major sects like the Clear Sky School or the Bright Moon sect would have to think seriously about starting a war, let alone small Western sects. The seniors from the major sects will have to step in to defuse the situation. Don't worry. Nobody dares to fight us, except maybe the Mountain Sea Sword sect." The two elders nodded. That did make sense. After a while, a disciple entered their space. The disciple was dressed in blue and white academy robes. He looked scholarly and held a fan in his hand. "Good morning, elders," he said in greeting. "What's the matter?" Jing Dajiang asked. "Senior sister Yang has fallen into the inner demon," said the young disciple. Jing Dajiang and the other two were surprised. "So soon? Where did she find the opportunity?" asked the bearded elder. "It seems she lost herself in anger, and then her immortal intent manifested." "Her immortal intent appeared?" Jing Dajiang frowned slightly. "What does she plan to do?" "She intends to ascend to the immortal ascension platform within her inner demon." "Nonsense. In fact, there's a possibility of success. Do you think you know this better than me?" The newcomer bowed. Senior sister Yang did something extraordinary. She took a golden core realm cultivator into her inner demon. This person might aid her in her success. Although senior sister Yang only wanted to protect him, she unknowingly laid a possibility for her path to immortality. This'll also benefit the golden core realm cultivator. She took someone into her inner demon? That is quite bold. Jing Dajiang chuckled. His name is Dole. He is of average talent and is good at formations. He sometimes thinks he is inferior to others but has a defining quality that most people lack: pure kindness. Senior sister Yang took the astronomical scroll to protect him. "This is an opportunity for both her and the golden core realm cultivator," said the newcomer. Is the situation dangerous? Yes. Our people haven't acted yet. This is an opportunity for everyone. Intervening might mean that they can help the two survive, but it might also increase the chance of failure for what Senior Sister Yang intends to do. Jing Dajiang fell silent for a moment. Then, he asked about the ancient pages. It seems it's in the West. According to some seniors, the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment might have attracted the pages to her. The Bright Moon sect has the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. The Clear Sky School has a sage. What does our sect have? The newcomer lowered his head and fell silent. Jing Dajiang didn't ask further. He had retired, and these matters were of no concern to him. The only thing he cared about was meeting that senior again. Unfortunately, apart from the book title, there was no further news about him. After the newcomer left, the three enjoyed the peanuts for a while. Feeling increasingly bored as they ate, Jing Dajiang finally stood up. It has been a long time since I went out, hasn't it? Why? Do you want to go out? The bearded elder asked. I'm going to go out for a stroll. Jing Dajiang got up. It was too boring to stay here day after day. In the southern region, Baizhu led Qiao Yi to the Heavenly Note sect. Princess, you come here quite often, said Qiao Yi. No, I don't, said Baizhu hurriedly. Please, Aunt Qiao, don't say such unlucky things. This'll be our last visit. Qiao Yi was puzzled. Why are you so afraid of this place yet insist on coming here every time? Because this is the south. I plan to go west. I want to meet the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Maybe you'll find her there. Baizhu smiled warily. Are you happy, princess? Of course. Leaving the southern region will make me even happier. If we can get used to the west, we won't even come back here. What if your brothers want to see you? Let them come to the west to visit me then. Besides, my life is almost over. In 100 years or so, I'll die. They don't need to worry about me anymore. Death meant the end of worries. Qiao Yi didn't know what to say for a moment. It probably wouldn't really end. The princess was not an ordinary person. Although she hadn't seen the princess in action, she seemed quite extraordinary. As for her claim of being the first genius of the royal family, that remained to be seen. Baizhu spoke to the guards as they neared the entrance of the Heavenly Note sect. I am Baizhu of the Black Heaven sect. I'm here to meet Liang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Here is my letter for your reference. The letter was provided by the Black Heaven sect, which allowed her to visit the Heavenly Note sect as a guest. Baizhu also handed over a few spirit stones to them for everything to go smoothly. She didn't have much else, but she had plenty of spirit stones. If she offered them a few, it would definitely make her visit much easier. Of course. Please follow me, said the guard after accepting the spirit stones. She was taken to the guest reception area. The guard then asked someone to fetch Jiang Hao. With spirit stones to pave the way, everyone was happy. At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao had waited for Gui to arrive for nearly a month. After handing over the items to her, he could go about his own affairs. As for Dole's situation, it all depended on luck. He had offended too many people this time. Even if Zhong was outstanding, she was just one person. She might not be able to protect Dole alone. Even if Xing had gotten involved, it would have been the same. No matter what he had to offer, he couldn't amass the power of the entire Astronomical Academy or the Bright Moon sect. That would require immense leverage, which Jiang Hao didn't have. Even a top-ranking disciple couldn't manage something like that. It was almost impossible for Dole to live a peaceful life. It would be difficult to survive for him. With a sigh, Jiang Hao stopped overthinking. After that, he arrived at the guest reception area. This was the second time he had directly traded with the other party. He didn't know if it would have any impact on him. Fortunately, it won't be as frequent. It's been too long since I saw you last, friend Jiang, said Baizhu with a smile. Jiang Hao politely said, indeed. Jiang Hao handed over the box containing the ancient and modern book. Friend Jiang, aren't you going to the west? Baizhu suddenly asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. That's a pity, Baizhu said with a regretful smile. Chapter 805, Appraising the Heavenly Fragrance. Dao Flower Jiang Hao simply responded with a friendly smile. He wouldn't go to the western region unless he needed to. It was not only dangerous there but also had no benefits. With the corpse that was going to awaken there, it was dangerous. The corpse realm had closed, and Old Man Corpse C might have already gotten out. There was a high probability of conflict in the west. The ancient and modern book would attract a lot of attention. The probability of the end of all things being there was quite high. In the gathering next time, perhaps he could remind Zhong of the new developments. Apart from that, there was also the fallen immortal clan. The immortal seed was about to bloom. Something would definitely happen there. He just didn't know who would target the fallen immortal clan next. Perhaps it would be the Shenyuan clan, but the present Shenyuan clan wasn't strong enough. Even with the Grand Earth Emperor, it was not enough. The Grand Earth Emperor, like the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, required time to grow more powerful. These things couldn't be achieved overnight. Friend Jiang, is there anything you want to ask me? Baizhu kindly asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. He didn't need to know anything right now. Just focusing on his cultivation was enough. As long as it wasn't something that could destroy the surrounding environment, it wouldn't affect him much. After glancing around, Baizhu discreetly took out a dozen or so spirit stones and handed them over to him. Jiang Hao felt strange receiving the spirit stones. Was this the first time someone had used spirit stones to get on his good side? Before, he used to be the one who would offer spirit stones to others to gain their favor. Unknowingly, he had become someone who others wanted to keep on their good side. A dozen or so spirit stones were not too bad, so he accepted them. Friend, the path to becoming an immortal is not easy, but being happy is the most important. Never give up on yourself. If you are angry with someone, you can learn to curse. It helps vent your anger without much risk, said Baizhu. She understood that the fate of the southern region lay in the hands of this person. Jiang Hao looked confused. He didn't understand what she meant. Baizhu smiled. She thought he was unaware that the fate of the southern region lay in his hands. That might make him feel a bit safer. Then, I won't stay any longer. Goodbye, Baizhu politely said. She quickly left. She hoped this would be her last trip to this sect. This person seemed harmless, but it was always better never to meet again. Jiang Hao bid farewell and saw Baizhu off. There was a chance that she was heading to the Lawless Tower. I wonder how many spirit stones she would have to spend there. Returning to the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao resumed his routine. The matters of the corpse realm were done, and the people who had come for it were gradually leaving. The Heavenly Gate sect had brought many people, but only half were present as they prepared to leave. At first, they had planned to leave 3 days later. However, 5 more people had died. The Heavenly Gate sect was furious. They demanded an explanation and compensation from the Heavenly Note sect. The next day, they left calmly. Liu Xingchen came to tell him that whatever had happened had caught his interest. Jiang Hao was curious. How is the matter being handled? They made exorbitant demands, so the Law Enforcement Hall investigated the issue. They found that our sect was innocent in this. The one who had done it turned out to be the Heavenly Gate sect's own people. Then, they apologized and left. Liu Xingchen chuckled. Jiang Hao couldn't believe it. He didn't expect the Heavenly Gate sect to be so cunning. But the Heavenly Note sect wasn't any better. Despite everyone keeping a low profile within the Heavenly Note sect, anyone would turn an enemy outside. The Heavenly Gate sect's matter wasn't disclosed to the public. On the surface, it still appeared as though the Heavenly Note sect had killed someone. Although they provided an explanation that it was the work of someone from the Great Thousand God sect, everyone was still suspicious. When the members of the Divine Corpse sect prepared to leave, they met Zhuang Yuzhen one last time. They offered to free him so he could return with them, but he refused. He said he had become a waste and didn't want to cause trouble for the sect. He left everything to the sect master and his disciples now. Zhuang Yuzhen stayed permanently in the Lawless Tower. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave, but he had no way out. The Divine Corpse sect was no longer his home. What use was an early-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator like him to them? He was less useful than many junior disciples. So, he couldn't return. After learning about it, Jiang Hao gave him a pot of good wine and meat. At that time, Wu Yong also revealed everything he knew. Finally, Baizhu paid him a ransom and sent him away from the lawless tower. His location was unknown. Everyone had their own matters to deal with. They also had their own choices. Some gained opportunities because of it, while others lay far from home. The world was like that. Most times, one didn't know if their decisions were right or wrong until the result happened. The only thing to do was to stick to your choices and believe in yourself. Early in February, the Heavenly Gate sect and the Divine Corpse sect departed. This time, Jiang Hao didn't meet many of their people. The Heavenly Note sect also didn't have any conflicts with them. Another half a month passed. Zhuge Zheng came to bid him farewell. "Friend Zhuge, travel safely," Jiang Hao said. "Thank you. My senior brother told me to learn from you," Zhuge Zheng said with a smile. "Learn what from me?" Jiang Hao was puzzled. He has already become an immortal. When he saw you, he felt your serenity and tranquility. It was like a calm, ancient well that transcended worldly matters, Zhuge Zheng said truthfully. He said someone like you only lacks an opportunity to soar to great heights. While my talent is good, my heart is not pure enough. Otherwise, my cultivation wouldn't have been so slow. Jiang Hao was surprised but didn't pay much attention to it. There was nothing to hide. The state of one's mind was perceived differently by different people. After that, Zhuge Zheng left. On the same day, people from the Mountain Sea Sword sect departed too. They were the friendliest with the Heavenly Note sect, just like the Bright Moon sect used to be. He still remembered Shu Bai when he had visited the sect. He was truly exceptional. Unfortunately, he didn't have Zhuge Zheng's luck. In his view, Shu Bai had been even more exceptional than Zhuge Zheng when he arrived. However, the latter had an exceptional opportunity and took the first step. All this was just speculation. Jiang Hao didn't know what cultivation realm Shu Bai was in. Around early March, Jiang Hao stared at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He noticed that there were new flower buds just forming on the stem. This worried him a bit. Once it matured, it would cause a commotion. However, it was also a good thing because Hong Yuye and Elder Baizhi would be pleased. Hong Yuye would stop pestering him, and Elder Baizhi might send him more treasures. "What are you looking at, Master?" the spirit beast asked as it wiped its drool from its mouth. Jiang Hao glanced at the beast and appraised the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Heavenly fragrance Dao flower seedling. At the beginning of the primordial chaos, a flower was born in the world. After numerous years, the heavenly fragrance Dao flower bore fruit, then dropped seeds, and this is one of the seeds that germinated and broke through the soil. It has started budding, with the Hong Meng energy as its guide. It allows the flower to be infused with the will of the primordial chaos. It will evolve in the yin-yang space and manifest the 3000 Great Tao. During this process, it emits a fragrance, and its spiritual energy will nourish the surrounding beings. Watering it with a bowl of pure water once a day will make it grow faster. Chapter 806. The journey will benefit you unimaginably. Looking at the feedback of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, Jiang 11AO was surprised. He didn't expect that it would still need the guidance of the Hong Meng purple energy. He coincidentally possessed it, but it was rare. Shall I do it? After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao decided to do it. This had no downside for him, perhaps he could even gain something from it. Moreover, he could find out if he would get more bubbles from it. The purple energy emerged from his hands and gradually entered the flower. At that moment, the flower revealed many meridians, and the purple energy flowed like running water into them. After a while, a fragrance wafted out of the flower. It was refreshing and invigorating. It began to spread spiritual energy around. The spirit beast excitedly said, "Master, this is great. I am satisfied." Jiang Hao got up and watered the plant. He went about his daily routine. There was no news of any gathering, so it was enough to just take care of the present things. He checked on Chu Chuan and the others. Since the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was in the west, Chu Chuan must have headed there. He had already grasped the basics of the heavenly blade. The fifth form could also be integrated into the previous sword techniques, which would benefit someone like Chu Chuan. He was someone who never accepted defeat. He was a determined person. Such sword techniques were fitting for him. As for Lin Ji, he needed something else. At the spiritual herb garden, Jiang Hao saw Cheng Chou. His cultivation progress wasn't fast. Even after several years, there were no signs of a breakthrough. Chu Chuan had already reached the late stage and was working toward the peak stage. He was curious about how Han Ming was doing. Jiang Hao cared about Han Ming. After cultivating for several years and encountering several opportunities, he should be showing signs of advancing to a new realm. Xiao Li had given up on herself, and her master let her do as she pleased. But Han Ming was different. He had good innate talent, worked hard, and had good opportunities. He had become one of the most promising people among his peers. Han Ming was the only hope for the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Senior brother Han went to perform the sect's tasks, Cheng Chou said. Jiang Hao nodded and then asked Cheng Chou if he had any difficulties with his cultivation. He tried to explain the problems in as much detail as possible in the spirit herb garden, so anyone who was coming in could listen in. For a while, some Foundation Establishment realm cultivators hesitated but eventually came over to listen to the discussion. Some would ask one or two questions, and Jiang Hao answered all questions in detail. This was why they wanted to come to the garden. However, they also hesitated because of the blood vow path. It was widely known that Jiang Hao cultivated the blood vow path. His kindness was not without reason. If they listened, they would have to pay a price. But they didn't know when that day would come. The benefits were genuine. Some were willing to pay the price, while others wanted to receive the benefits before deciding. Jiang Hao didn't care about that. He was simply helping out and mostly wanted Cheng Chou to succeed. This was to prepare him to reach the Golden Core realm. Cheng Chou lacked sufficient innate talent, and the difficulty of the Golden Core realm was extremely high. If he understood enough and his cultivation was solid enough, then the difficulty would be greatly reduced. As for the final result, it all depended on one's luck. After that, Jiang Hao's days passed quietly. The sect hadn't had any conflicts with anyone lately, and the people in the Lawless Tower were busy with their own affairs. Managing the heavenly fragrance Dao flower with the purple energy didn't bring about more bubbles. Chu Chuan had already received the complete instruction in sword techniques. 6 months later, around early September, Chu Chuan found him. "Senior brother Jiang, I want to leave the mountain," Chu Chuan said. Jiang Hao felt quite sentimental. He hadn't expected Chu Chuan to bring this up willingly. "Why the hurry?" he asked. He had intended for Chu Chuan to stay until he reached the Golden Core realm, at least. "I want to go out to sea and experience the hardships of the cultivation world. Only then can I grow faster. I feel like my growth is stunted here. So, I want to go out," Chu Chuan said. Jiang Hao understood that his last trip outside had made him yearn for the outside world even more. After hesitating for a while, Jiang Hao said, "Where do you want to go?" "I haven't thought about it. I'll decide along the way," Chu Chuan said. Jiang Hao looked at him. "Then, head east first." "Huh?" Chu Chuan was confused. Wasn't that too far away? With his cultivation, it would take hundreds of years even if he managed to reach there. When they went there before, it had been a matter of months because the sect had spent many resources to get them there. Chu Chuan, at the Foundation Establishment realm, had neither special treasures nor strength to reach there in a very short time. If he could reach there in 100 years, that would be considered quite fast. "Just set your sights to the east. The journey will be slow, but it'll be better. This journey will be enough for your advancement. When you reach the east and look back, you'll find the return journey to be much easier," Jiang Hao said. Chu Chuan looked eager. East. Chu Jie was still in the eastern region. It had been a long time since he had seen her. He hesitated. "But, can I really do it?" Jiang Hao looked at Chu Chuan. "Young people should be more eager. Don't worry about the distance or the time it'll take. Just take the path with your sword. Just ride your sword against the waves and compete with all living beings. Each step you take will be boundless if you set your sights on the goal. This journey will give you unbelievable benefits. Chu Chuan was stunned. He looked at the person before him with emotion. It seemed his senior brother was indeed exceptional. This was something Chu Chuan had never considered before. In front of Lord Beast and senior sister Xiao Li, he seemed too ordinary. I won't let you down, senior brother Jiang, Chu Chuan said firmly. Jiang Hao nodded and then asked Chu Chuan to get ready. 7 days later, Chu Chuan found Jiang Hao again. Are you leaving the mountain? Yes. Take these with you. Jiang Hao handed over a storage treasure. Inside were a primordial spirit sword, a primordial spirit protective artifact, 10,000 spirit stones, various pills, 5 concealment talismans, 5 hidden heaven secrets hidden talismans, and 2,000 miles teleportation talismans. The teleportation artifact he had received from junior sister Ning Shuang was also inside. Chu Chuan was incredulous. He didn't know the grades of these items, but he was aware that they were far from ordinary. Senior brother Jiang, the journey won't be easy. Just take it. Chu Chuan accepted the things humbly. When he left, it was Xiao Li and the spirit beast who saw him off. He stepped out of the sect's main gate. He looked back and saw Xiao Li waving to him, while Lord Beast reminded him to remember its name. It would make his journey easier. Chu Chuan looked at them. He didn't know when he would return. The days at the sect had been his happiest. But eventually, one had to grow up. Wait for me. I will definitely come back better than this. Chapter 807, Gui, I'm about to reach the west. Chu Chuan left. He embarked on his quest. Jiang Hao stood on the mountaintop and watched him leave. Maybe they would never meet again. In the future, he might also leave this place. Xiao Li and the spirit beast would leave at some point too. The 4 regions were so vast that they might not meet each other again. Even if they were determined to search for one another, it would be almost impossible to find their location. As time passed, the matters of the Heavenly Note sect would also fade away. Perhaps one day, they would look back and think of them as childhood friends. But maybe they might not remember their faces or even their names. The time they spent might be forgotten. Even if they had the ability to return, they might choose not to. However, it was different for Chu Jie. Chu Chuan's destination on this trip was the Bright Moon sect. He would never forget Chu Jie. Whether Chu Jie would remember him or not, that was an entirely different matter. In any case, these were the things that Chu Chuan needed to face, and his future would depend on his own fate. It's a long journey to the east. In many places, insufficient cultivation makes it impossible to cross. If he really reaches the east one day, I wonder what level of cultivation he will have. Jiang Hao sighed and turned back. In mid-September, the peach tree had already borne fruit. After a while, it would be ready for another incarnation. During this incarnation, he would be able to obtain another purple bubble. Unfortunately, he had obtained only 1 purple bubble so far. Getting another one wouldn't grant any divine abilities. However, he was close. After another 3 years, he would be able to obtain another divine ability. That wasn't too long. Before, he couldn't get a single divine ability for over a decade, but now, he was getting several in a dozen years. He had to learn to be content with it. For over half a year, he had been waiting for another gathering. He didn't know when it would start. Many things hadn't been discussed yet, so he was quite concerned. During that period, the end of all things had planned a lot. He didn't know what the Old Man Corpse C would do when he emerged. He also didn't know how the fallen immortal clan was doing, but they might be making some progress. Jiang Hao felt the need to improve faster. While others were making progress, he couldn't afford to sit and do nothing. His talisman-making job had been delayed for a long time. He couldn't make better talismans. It hindered his progress. So, he spent more time on spells and divine abilities. He couldn't calm his mental state as he wanted. If his state of mind improved too quickly, he might lose sight of what was important and make some dangerous decisions. During that period, Haiming didn't come by. He also didn't know if Feng Hua was still planning something. But he was okay with it. He only worried when he was close to his goals. That was when the enemy would strike. He had to find someone to delay the others. When he returned home, Xiao Li and the spirit beast looked defeated. Chu Chuan's departure had made them feel sad. They were fine a few days ago because they were always together. They had suddenly lost a member of their group. They had never expected Chu Chuan to leave. However, this feeling only lasted for half a day. When it was time for a meal, Xiao Li took the spirit beast and ran to the cafeteria. Half a month later, they were wondering if Chu Chuan would bring gifts when he returned. Around early October, Jiang Hao finally received the news of the upcoming gathering. I wonder how things are going with Zhong. In half a year, Dole's affairs should have been handled. He felt that Dole had more bad luck than good on this path as he was being eyed by various major sects. Besides, Dole was only at the Golden Core realm. A situation such as this was difficult even for someone like Jiang Hao. He lived carefully and cautiously to avoid such a life. He constantly grew stronger so that he could deal with such situations. By being stronger than them, he wouldn't have to bow to them and accept his fate. Jiang Hao waited for midnight. When it was time, Jiang Hao entered the hall and noticed that Zhong looked a little odd. Two conflicting auras were emanating from her. One was extremely chaotic, while the other was transcendently detached. She was in a poor state. The others, including Xing, were also surprised by Zhong's condition. They thought of a possibility. Zhong might have been preparing to ascend to the Immortal Ascension platform but was invaded by her inner demon. It seems friend Zhong has many cultivation problems today. Dan Yuan smiled. Jiang Hao and the others looked at Zhong and waited for her to speak. At that moment, Zhong seemed to be in a daze as she looked up at Senior Dan Yuan. How can I overcome the inner demon? Dan Yuan nodded slightly and smiled. The inner demon is the flip side of your state of mind. It's another you. The best way to suppress it is to face it, understand it, and finally, conquer it. The method is profound and incomprehensible. However, there is a simpler method, the immortal will. You have to reach for that and expand it to suppress your demon. The method requires you to confront the demon directly. Jiang Hao was amazed. Normally, once someone entered seclusion, communication would be impossible. Zhong was facing her inner demon, yet she was able to communicate through the stone tablet. Moreover, they had Senior Dan Yuan here. With his help, maybe her process would be easier. They were unsure what the price for this information would be. Such help was invaluable. Zhong wanted to speak, but Dan Yuan said, "This is also a problem with your cultivation. I can help you with more explanation, young friend. Free of charge." Jiang Hao was shocked. This was an incredible opportunity. At that moment, Dan Yuan slowly began explaining the immortal will. Although Jiang Hao listened intently, he couldn't understand it entirely. This was not something a cultivator like him could understand. Even Xing and the others only grasped a fraction of it. Only Zhong gained many insights into it. After a long while, Dan Yuan stopped speaking. This can help you resist the inner demon better. Whether you can bloom within the inner demon ultimately depends on yourself. Zhong thanked him. Dan Yuan looked at the others. No one spoke. Do we have any news about the sage's page? Dan Yuan asked. I received some information. It seems to be in the west, but I don't know about the exact location. There is a good chance it might be near wherever the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment is, said Xing. It might indeed be in the west. I heard that the master of the Heavenly Tower is also headed that way, said Liu. Jiang Hao suddenly remembered what Jiu Jin had mentioned. Some individuals from the Astronomical Academy also went to find the ancient pages to establish their own sect. The master of the Heavenly Tower might have had a similar idea. All these reasons made them feel like the ancient pages were probably in the west. Dan Yuan nodded. Did you find any more information? They shook their heads. Dan Yuan told them that he would confirm it soon enough. With no further questions, they began their transactions. I've obtained the ancient and modern book, and am about to reach the west. It's quite far from the Academy's location. I also met Wu Yang and discussed matters with him. He wanted to leave, so I helped him, said Gui. She felt like she had gained a lot from this trip. Chapter 808, Gui, danger should be in the south, right? Gui completed her task and waited for her reward. What do you need? Liu asked. The task hadn't been something big, so the reward wouldn't be great either. As for releasing someone from the lawless tower, Gui did it willingly. Her deal with Wu Yang wasn't part of this transaction. I want news about the Heavenly Spirit tribe. Gui looked at Zhong. Jiang Hao was surprised. Why did Gui suddenly want information about the Heavenly Spirit tribe? It wasn't so surprising when he thought about it carefully. Last time, she had asked for the heaven-bestowed cultivation technique. So, her asking for the Heavenly Spirit tribe this time was reasonable. Both Zhong and Liu also felt the same. Zhong told her that if she succeeded in her ordeal, she would help Gui find some information about the tribe. Then, Zhong looked at Jing awkwardly. Your person is still alive. Jiang Hao nodded. It was lucky that Dole was still alive. Zhong should focus on her advancement. A failed transaction was just that. It was no big deal. But a failed advancement could mean certain death. Everyone here did what they felt was right after weighing the gains and losses. There were no more transactions after that. Everyone began discussing the events happening around them. I met Shong'an, and I could feel a kind of ethereal energy around him. He is truly amazing. It was the first time I saw an immortal like him. In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, I gained many insights, said Xing. Gui looked at him worriedly. Friend Xing, is it your turn soon? Xing shook his head and sighed. That kind of opportunity might take 10 or 100 years. It's impossible to explain. Jiang Hao lowered his head and wondered whether he should wait for an opportunity too. I asked the questions you wanted, said Xing. He looked at Gui. Shong'an said that if someone encountered the opportunity he created but failed to ascend, then there is no need to worry. There will definitely be another chance. It is up to fate. Gui was quite pleased. Xing then looked at Liu. To your question, Shong'an said, the world in my eyes is the same as the world in your eyes. We are all the same, and if we feel differently, it's probably because of how we had to live our lives. Liu nodded. He was lost in thought. Xing then looked at Zhong. I asked him what you wanted. He said, if someone wanted to kill me, I wouldn't forgive them. Similarly, if I killed someone, I wouldn't seek their forgiveness. Zhong fell into deep thought. Jiang Hao looked at Zhong and felt odd. Was she thinking of what was good and evil for herself? Did she want an answer from the wise? While waiting, she had fallen into her inner demon. Nothing much happened in the south, but I saw many people from the overseas Shangguan family. They seemed to be looking for someone important. Some people from the Great Thousand God sect are still present, said Gui. I asked some members from the Great Thousand God sect. They said they aren't planning to enter the southern region for a while. Apart from the incidents in the south, I feel like they are up to something big. They are still in conflict with the Shangguan family. I'm not sure why. Also, the Great Thousand God sect is also fighting within itself. It seems it's a clash between different authority figures. The Great Thousand God sect wasn't united. Just like the 12 branches of the Heavenly Note sect, it was entirely normal for them to fight each other. If different sectors within the Law Enforcement Hall could fight among themselves, it was entirely possible for a sect to be divided. Jiang Hao could fully understand this. Although these things happened in the south, they had nothing to do with him. It couldn't affect him. Liu thought for a moment. Lately, there has been something strange in the Abyssal Sea. It seems some kind of light appeared there, but I'm not sure why. Some say that something is about to emerge from there, but it's still uncertain what it could be. Light? Gui asked. The Shenyuan sword has been shining lately. I don't know why. It's been shining since I left, and I heard it's still shining. They think that the Grand Earth Emperor might be coming out of seclusion. The immortal seed of the fallen immortal clan is about to bloom, said Jiang Hao in a low voice. Everyone was stunned. Immortal seed is about to bloom? Gui asked in disbelief. Jiang Hao nodded. The fallen immortal clan is formidable. They created the 9 nether. If they are doing something, it's not surprising that the Shenyuan sword is reacting to it, Liu said. Are they planning to become immortals again? It was very likely. Apart from Xing, it seemed that no one present had issues with the fallen immortal clan. Regardless, they needed to pay attention to such matters. Is the fallen immortal clan overseas or in the west? Lately, a Dead Sea has appeared overseas and is affecting everything. That must be the fallen immortal clan's doing, said Liu. It must be the Old Man Corpse Sea, Jiang Hao said. Old Man Corpse Sea made a deal with the end of all things. They would help him leave the corpse realm in exchange for awakening a corpse. Everyone felt alarmed. When did all this happen? They had no knowledge of this whatsoever. And who was this Old Man Corpse Sea? Is he from the Divine Corpse sect? Dan Yuan asked with a smile. Jiang Hao nodded. You are correct as always, senior. Everyone was puzzled. What's the deal with awakening a corpse? Asked Gui. Everyone knew about the end of all things. They wanted the world and all the living beings destroyed. Awakening a corpse would be extremely dangerous. It's a corpse that seeks resurrection. Once awakened, it will consume the vitality of living beings in its quest for revival and bring calamity to all living creatures on Earth, Jiang Hao said. He wanted to inform these people. He hoped Gui would continue asking more questions. Sure enough, she did. So, this corpse must be in the south, right? Everyone knew by now that all dangerous entities resided in the south. However, Jing shook his head. It's in the west. Gui was stunned. The west? Why would it be in the west? She wondered if she was just unlucky. Why did danger follow everywhere she went? Zhong didn't ask anything. She seemed to have no energy. Both Liu and Xing were curious. This information had significant implications. The West has immortal sects. Dangerous matters should be handled by the immortal sects, Dan Yuan said with a smile. Gui nodded. She decided to find a way to send a message to the Astronomical Academy. This WOV, if there were dankers, there would be others to deal with them. Jiang Hao remained silent. He had said what needed to be said. It was up to these people to handle the rest. As for the West, he didn't want to go there. It was too risky. Whether it was about the ancient pages or the end of all things, everything seemed to be brewing in the West. Since the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was in the West, the end of all things must have been planning this all along. Chapter 809. Cannot shirk the responsibility of the mines. Jiang Hao said all he wanted to say. Old Man Corpse Sea might have left the corpse realm. The end of all things was waiting for the corpse to awaken. The immortal seed of the fallen immortal clan was about to bloom. The first issue wasn't too important, but the other two were likely to cause some commotion. It was necessary to let everyone know and then let them handle the problems. That would be beneficial for everyone. After learning about the situation, Gui seemed rather numb. She felt like she had even greater darkness awaiting her. Perhaps, it was a mistake to leave. Some other matters were also discussed during the gathering. Liu mentioned Kai Tian. He stated that he had been gaining favor from Heavenly King Taomu. His influence was growing stronger. His reputation was soaring. With the help of the Heavenly King, his cultivation was advancing rapidly. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh at Kai Tian's opportunities. While others faced the sect's opposition, they had long since withdrawn into a corner and faded away. On the contrary, he not only avenged his family but also gained the recognition of an influential figure. And now, his name resounded throughout the world. Now, it was just a matter of breaking away from Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao didn't need to ask to know that Kai Tian would be making preparations to deal with him. Liu also mentioned that Mi Lingyu and Mu Longyu had some disputes. After the disagreement, Mi Lingyu disappeared overseas. Gui was very interested in that. She mentioned something about someone in the Lawless Tower. They were still speculating about what happened between the two people and why the Heavenly Note sect had arrested someone again. Jiang Hao listened intently. After all, the reason Mi Lingyu entered the Lawless Tower was essentially because of him. Mi Lingyu really wanted to break away from the Great Thousand God sect. The Great Thousand God sect had a remarkable means of control, but their true intentions weren't clear. Heavenly King Hai Luo seemed to know something but wouldn't talk. It had nothing to do with him anyway. It was better to avoid getting involved if possible. As long as it didn't affect him, he was fine with it. The gathering ended. Jiang Hao returned to his house and took out a notebook to record everything. The sage's pages were likely in the west since the master of Heavenly Tower was also heading that way. Zhong was about to advance, but for that, she needed to overcome her inner demon. Dole's condition was uncertain. He had informed them that the fallen immortal clan's immortal seed was about to bloom and that the corpse in the west was about to be awakened, but he hadn't told them that it could happen in Sea Sky Forest. Jiang Hao didn't note down the matter of Kai Tian, Mi Lingyu, the Abyssal Sea, and the overseas Shangguan family. These were all unimportant matters. He didn't write down about Kai Tian especially because he wanted to be able to tell Hong Yuye in person. He didn't want it to seem like he hadn't done anything. After putting away the book, Jiang Hao mediated. Since he had reached the Immortal Ascension platform, his understanding of realms had also increased. He was flipping cultivation books. Jiang Hao was willing to take out the Blood Vow Path book to review it. The more he understood about these things, the better prepared he would be when facing such formidable enemies. If he was able to launch a surprise attack, he wouldn't have to worry about confronting his enemy head-on. In the early morning, Jiang Hao walked into the courtyard and gazed at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. "Beast, wake up," said Xiao Li from the outside. She peeked in from the doorway to check if Jiang Hao was around. "Why are you being so loud and sneaky?" Jiang Hao sighed but didn't say it aloud. "Senior brother Jiang," Xiao Li tiptoed in. Then, she glanced at the peach tree. "Go ahead and pick some," Jiang Hao said. Xiao Li came early in the morning to pluck the peaches because they were ripening. She also noticed the pleasant fragrance in the courtyard. She liked the fragrance when it lingered on her. That way, she smelled good since she tended to wander around the sect and get her clothes stained, which smelled bad sometimes. "Thank you, senior brother Jiang." Xiao Li came under the tree to start picking peaches. She plucked the smallest one for Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao took a bite and then used his half-moon blade to lift the spirit beast. Xiao Li held the peaches in her hands. "Senior brother Jiang, do you think the beast dreams of eating peaches?" "Perhaps," Jiang Hao said indifferently. "Then, would the beast leave a few for me?" Xiao Li asked again. "Will you leave any for it?" Jiang Hao asked in return. "I will. The beast likes eating carrots, and I always feed it carrots," she said. "I am afraid it can't handle meat, so I always help it to finish them." Jiang Hao was quite surprised but didn't say anything. Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden. He saw Mu Qi and Miao Tinglian there. He handed over the spirit beast to Xiao Li. He went over to greet them. "Senior brother, senior sister, greetings." Mu Qi nodded with a smile. "I came to talk to you about something, junior brother Jiang. I feel a bit embarrassed to bring it up." Jiang Hao felt puzzled and instinctively looked at Miao Tinglian in concern. Before, it was only her pestering him. Had Mu Qi joined her too? "We're not here to find you a partner," Miao Tinglian said. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. Miao Tinglian said disapprovingly, "Junior brother Jiang, I do still feel like you lack a partner. I found someone just right for you." Unfortunately, she was snatched away by another sect. A golden core realm cultivator at such a young age should have a partner. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to Miao Tinglian's words but looked at Mu Qi and asked about the matter. "The sect has assigned me a task. It isn't a big deal, but Miao Tinglian has been a bit unwell lately. She might not be able to handle some things," said Mu Qi, and hesitated. "So, I wanted to ask if you are free." Jiang Hao didn't hesitate. "What task is it, senior brother Mu?" "My task was to guard the outskirts of the mines before. But now, in being asked to investigate inside the mines. I could occasionally visit the mines and make sure it was all right before. But, to investigate the inside of the mines, I would have to stay there longer," said Mu Qi. Senior sister Meow Tinglian's health requires your attention. That should be your priority. Leave the job to me, senior brother Moo. I won't let you down, said Jiang Hao firmly. Well, entering the mines has its own risks. My job as a team leader is quite a stressful one, so it will be the same for you, said Mu Qi. Jiang Hao just earnestly said, I'll do my best. Please don't worry. The ones accompanying me would have been in the early or middle stages of the Golden Core realm. I think you can handle them. But, just to be safe, don't venture in too deep. Even if the task fails, I'm willing to take the punishment. Don't put yourself in danger, said Mu Qi. We can also give you some good stuff so that you won't feel like we are exploiting you, Meow Tinglian said. Please don't find me a new partner. Jiang Hao didn't say that out loud. He couldn't pass up such a good opportunity. Mu Qi and Meow Tinglian were always very kind to him. He was curious about Meow Tinglian's health. Jiang Hao glanced over and didn't notice any signs of weakness. But she sensed something peculiar. In an instant, he thought of the Heavenly Saint sect. Meow Tinglian was one of the saintess candidates for the Heavenly Saint sect. Because of such a status, the Heavenly Saint sect wouldn't let her off easily. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to appraise her. If he couldn't sense what was wrong with her even with his current cultivation realm, it must be something extraordinary. Chapter 8:10. The person most likely to become the charm goddess Meow Tinglian was a very eager person. She was so eager and enthusiastic about everything that Jiang Hao sometimes wanted to avoid meeting her. Over the years, she kept introducing potential partners to him. He always feared she would bring someone to meet him. He didn't want that to happen. However, she never meant him any harm. That put his mind at ease. He activated his daily appraisal to see what was wrong. Meow Tinglian, one of the saintess candidates of the Heavenly Saint sect. At the late stage of the Golden Core realm, she joined the Heavenly Note sect and betrayed the Heavenly Saint sect to become an inner sect disciple of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. The Holy Master of the Heavenly Saint sect is showing signs of a revival. An avatar will appear soon and will need a saintess to refine his divine soul. Being marked, she's being watched by the main avatar. There are signs of its approach. The divine soul can nourish the mountain sea seal. Most of the information wasn't surprising for Jiang Hao. However, the last part was astonishing. Nourish the mountain sea seal? The mountain sea seal could be nourished? That was incredible. Using the soul for nourishment was surprising. If it could make the mountain sea seal stronger, that would be great. However, it was unclear how to catch this divine soul. The mission starts in about 2 months, so you don't need to rush, junior brother Jiang. Use the time to prepare well, Mu Qi said. Jiang Hao nodded. Actually, he was already prepared. He could even go now if needed. The only thing that would delay him was the incarnation of the immortal peach tree. There was nothing comparable to mining. The only thing he was concerned about was acting as the team leader. After having achieved the Golden Core realm, he always had to lead a group. Before, he would only follow instructions and do his part. Jiang Hao glanced at Meow Tinglian and felt that the main body of the Holy Master was about to arrive. Should I inform the Master? Senior brother's strength might not be enough to stop it. However, the Cliff Master would have no problem dealing with the divine soul. Although Jiang Hao's strength was decent, it was still far inferior to the Cliff Master. He didn't know how to inform him, so he could only wait and see. As for nourishing the mountain sea seal, Jiang Hao decided to leave the mountain sea seal around the spirit herb garden. If he went to the mine, they would naturally have to take care of the garden. So, leaving the seal here would at least alert him when the divine soul arrived. If it didn't work, he would find a way to inform the Cliff Master or Liu Xingchen. He could also have the spirit beast on alert so that it could inform Xiao Li. Xiao Li's involvement would make the Cliff Master curious. After all, the most important thing for Xiao Li was to be healthy. 2 months later, around early December, Jiang Hao stood in front of the immortal peach tree. These 2 months had been calm, but the Candlelight Pill Pavilion had given him a list of top-grade spirit herbs to plant. It was a total of 100 herbs. It was a considerable quantity, but he declined. He was about to head to the mines, so he couldn't stay here and tend to the spirit herbs. He explained everything truthfully so that the disciples wouldn't feel offended by his refusal. As an apology, he gave them a few talismans. He hadn't been selling talismans recently, but he still had quite a few left. He could give them away to avoid trouble. It was strange when people did the same to him. Indeed, he was different from before. In a few days, I'll be going to the mines. Jiang Hao sighed. He was going to leave just when the immortal peach tree would be ready for an incarnation. After it succeeded, he could go. The timing was just right. He appraised the tree. Immortal peach tree, it is related to the ancient divine tree, the immortal peach tree. It has a trace of the divine tree's traits, and the fruits it bears are sweet and fragrant. Leaving one fruit on the tree and setting up a spirit gathering array with 49 spirit stones in the vicinity can activate a trace of the divine trait and trigger an incarnation. After 3 successful incarnations, it will become a divine tree. Placing it near divine items increases the possibility of a successful incarnation. Less than 50,000, Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. The amount of spirit stones had increased but not by much. It was uncertain how much it would be the next time. It could be a lot more. After all, it was the last 3 incarnations. But for him, it was a minor issue now. Before, he had 280,000 spirit stones. He had given 10,000 to Chu Chuan, so now, he was left with 270,000 spirit stones. If he used up 50,000, he would be left with 220,000. Even if he bought another pack of September Spring, he would still have 180,000. He couldn't spend it all, no matter how he looked at it. After dealing with the incarnation of the immortal peach tree and the matters in the mines, he could return to the spirit herb garden and plant the high-grade herbs. He spent nearly 50,000 spirit stones, and the incarnation was finally triggered. The spirit beast watched it in astonishment. The fire on the peach tree burned all night. It watched as the peach tree was reduced to ashes. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao found a seed in the ashes. It was full of vitality. He appraised it. Immortal peach tree seed, it is a seed from the core of the divine tree. It possesses a trace of the divine trait. After it takes root and grows, it'll bear fruit. It will turn into a fully divine tree after 2 incarnations. Water it with fresh water every day, and it will sprout in 2 days. It'll sprout in 2 days, and will turn into a divine tree after 2 incarnations. I wonder what the divine tree will be like. Jiang Hao looked at the seed in anticipation. In 6 years, he would have a divine tree in his courtyard. At that time, it would surely give him more bubbles. 6 years wasn't too long. The future was promising. 2 days later, Jiang Hao walked into the courtyard. He sighed in relief as he looked at the purple bubble. Divine ability fragment +1, he only had to obtain 1 more. Perhaps, in the next 3 years. He was concerned. After the final incarnation, what kind of bubbles would he get? For something like the immortal peach tree, it was highly likely that he would get a golden bubble. When he obtained a purple gold bubble before, he had gotten the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. He didn't know what it would be this time. Jiang Hao couldn't think of anything else that could compare to the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. The next day, Jiang Hao headed to the law enforcement hall after buying some tea. He was supposed to meet the others there for the task. This time, he decided to suggest splitting into 2 groups. He could mine while the others explored. They needed to choose another team leader. He had thought of it. He only needed a little time to appoint someone capable. Jiang Hao waited for the others. There were 5 people in total including him. 2 were from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, and 2 others were from the Ice Moon Valley. Among those from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, there was a man and a woman. The man looked refined and composed. The woman was dressed in black. She had a red mark on her face that resembled a lotus. Overall, she looked ordinary. However, she made him feel strange. She looked sort of bloated. However, when he looked at her carefully, he realized that she was very beautiful. Jiang Hao understood her issue. She had a charm body with impediments. It was like a curse. Her charm body was covered by hindrances. Jiang Hao realized that this person had a high possibility of becoming a charm goddess. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,